guys? Welcome back to the Kevin Duragi Show. You are gonna love this one. You're gonna love it. So, guys, this is Pip. His name is Pip, for Pete's sake. How awesome is that? You're gonna love it. So, watch this natural progression of getting into real estate. So, he starts out as a comic, right? So he is waiting tables. He's doing this stuff. Gets a chance to get up and start introducing people as comics. He becomes a comic himself. He starts touring, doing all this stuff. Then he goes back and helps his family grocery store start, getting back into business because, mom, dad kind of pulled out. Now it's the kids' turn to run the show. And then the big bag Walmart comes in and kicks them out. And he gets into real estate, natural progression. Gosh, it is fantastic. And he's going to end in something truly inspirational. I want you guys to be a part of Pip's life and his experience here. So, guys, let's get back to Pip. Hey, welcome back to the Kevin Duragi Show. I am your host, Kevin Duragi. Today, we have a fun conversation with Pip Stehlik. Pip, how you doing?
Amazing. How are you doing, Kevin?
Did I get that, Stehlik?
You did well. Probably better than I would do with your last name. So
I was going to say, you want to give it a go?
Duragi.
Actually, that's pretty good. We become very, very lenient on pronunciations we'll accept.
Is that Italian? Is that Italian?
It is. Very good.
Italian.
Very good.
There we go.
Actually, both sides of my family came out of the Milan area, so the suburbs of Milan. So cool. Fun fact.
Stehlik, not that you asked, is actually a Czech. Used to be Czechoslovakia, but now that's all split, so it's a Czech name.
Fun. Well, Czech Republic, and what did the other part go to?
Slovakia. I don't know, but it was Czechoslovakia. Now it's the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Although if we get that wrong and anybody catches us on our geography,
fact check. Well, I don't have followers quite in that part yet. We're not quite to the Eastern Europe side. So, hey, that's okay. That's okay. We got to start somewhere. So that's it. So, Pip, I have to start with this. What kind of name is Pip? When I got introduced to you, I'm like, is that short for something?
I wish it was a great story. However, it is a story. I'm the youngest of 6, and my mom and
dad just ran out of letters.
My mom and dad were quite a bit older when I was born. My dad was 46, my mom was 42, and I was the last kid they had. Now, I have a brother, Bill, who's a year older than me. And my older brothers, I have a brother that was 16 years older than me and 12 years and right on down the line. And so they used to give Bill and I a lot of grief when we were younger. And they always told us, since we were so late in life, that we were both mistakes. Now, my mom said, you weren't a mistake, you were a surprise. I'm not really sure how that really, helps because, like she forgot how she did this or how it happened at the age of 42.
Oh, that's what does it.
Exactly. So my older brothers called me Pip as a shortened version of Pip Squeak because my brother Bill, who's a year older than me, he was always a foot taller than me. He's now like 6'4", weighs 300 pounds. So growing up next to him, I was always a Pip Squeak. So they gave me the nickname of Pip, shortened version of Pip Squeak, and my real name is Mike. And so
you're way off.
The reason I go by Pip is because I'm from a little town in Nebraska called Nebraska City. It's a town of about 7,500 people, maybe a little bit less now. And growing up, it was in 4th grade. As I said, my name is Mike, last name is Stehlik. And so I'm in 4th grade, and teacher is going through the class. There's 25 kids in the class, and 6 of them are named Mike. And so by the time they got to me, Mike had been used, Michael, Mikey. By the time they got to me, I was the last Mike alphabetically anyway. And she goes, do you go by anything else? I said, well, my family calls me Pip. I had no idea that for the rest of my life, I would never be known as anything else. And when you think about it, when your buddies call you by a name, it's just your buddies, or it dies out at a certain age. But the next year, the next teacher called me Pip. The next year, the next teacher called me Pip. By the time I got to high school, I didn't even know my real name. It was quite funny. The principal said my name, and he's like handing out the diploma. He's like, Michael Christopher. He goes, I can't call you that. Pip, come up here and get your diploma. So that's the name I've gone by to this day. I use it. It's not on my legal documents, but I've actually got credit cards with the name Pip on it, if that can even make sense. It tells you how hard it is to get a credit card in today's society. I got one under my name, Pip Stehlik, so that's fine. I find that to be very funny.
Oh, my gosh. Actually, that's hilarious. So I'm actually the youngest of 5. A lot of your story makes sense. So 14 years between oldest and me. Surprise, right? So apparently they saved the best humor for the last ones, is what I found out.
Well, that's what I say. Everything. It's always the best for last. That's what we told my mom forever. So there we go.
So we had, I think it was middle school. This guy picked his nose. I mean, we're not talking big nose, but probably like something like that. So we called him Booger, and like that stuck the rest of his career. And it's like, oh my gosh, like we're a bunch of jerks.
Well, nicknames today have to be, I guess, politically correct. I was listening to a stand-up comic, and he was talking about one of his buddies they named Aimer because he lost his right eye, and it always looked like he was aiming a gun. And so you couldn't name a buddy like that anymore. It's got to be a much more politically correct name. But yeah, we used a lot of different names that probably like I love Booger is a great name.
Yeah, but it's so my name is Kevin. Like you can't really do much with that. You could go Kev, maybe Kevy. I've heard these. I have a Kavinsky. So I mean, it's like okay.
We'll just go with K-Man. That sounds pretty cool. The K-Man.
Yeah, boy, K-Man is going to take off, I'll start making the T-shirts, right?
Or K-Dog. I'm not sure what we're doing here.
All right, back to real estate. So, Pip, how did you go from small-time Nebraska to real estate investor?
Well, I could give you the short story. I could give you the long story. My friends always tell me that I can make a short story long. So this may be a 3-hour podcast today. We're not really sure, but
we got great editing. They'll just cut it all out. Yeah.
So I literally went to a class to learn how to do real estate, and I can go back before that. Maybe that'll be another question. But I went to this class to learn how to do real estate. I went to this big stage event to see a guy by the name of Ziglar, who many people are very familiar with, and I'm sitting in this class, or I go to this big stage event. Pardon me. And there's like 3,000 or 4,000 people there. And they basically say, hey, you know what? If you invest $99, you can go to this 3-day real estate class. And so my brother and I, like $99, this is all the way back in 2002, so quite a few years ago. And so we said for $99, even if we don't like it, it's not that we're spending a ton of money. So we go to this 3-day class, and little did we know, we had no idea. Our background is in the grocery business. That's where my parents were at. My background before that, it was in stand-up comedy. And I can get to that story if you really want to hear that one. But the interesting thing about the real estate was I'm sitting in that class going, this makes a lot of sense. And my brother and I, we invested a lot of money in additional education. Way back in 2002, we split a $35,000 education package. And so if you adjust that for inflation today, that'd be well over $60,000. But for us, it was the pinnacle of, or the starting point, if you would, of our real estate journey, because within 16 months, we bought 16 properties. And how did we do that? We did that because we learned strategies that allowed us to use none of our own money and actually none of our own credit. And so when people start to say, how can you buy all these properties? Did you have a lot of money? No, I was making a whopping $36,000 a year when I became a real estate investor. My wife was a stay-at-home mom, so that was our combined income. So how many mortgages can you get? Even if you have AAA credit, how many mortgages can you get with a $36,000 income? Not many. So we had to learn from deal one, how do we use creative financing strategies? How do we use other people's money, other people's credit to get into deals? And so we've just been doing that pretty much ever since. And it's been quite the journey from 2002 to today.
So grocer, comic to real estate?
Yeah, it's a perfect.
It makes sense for a lot of people. I could see where the comic stuff didn't pan out for you.
So, do you want to hear the whole story? We can go through the whole.
Yeah, have fun with this.
Okay, so like I said, I grew up the youngest of 6, and I literally, for whatever reason, I had the ability to do voices from cartoons and things like that. So think the Bugs Bunny, Warner Brothers cartoons with Yosemite Sam and Foghorn Leghorn and Daffy Duck and some of those guys. And so my older brothers would always get me to do the voices after we'd watch the cartoons, and they would laugh at me, and I was kind of a little novelty act. Well, I thought that was pretty cool because my older brothers were wanting me to hang out with their friends. And so when you're 7, 8, 9 years old and you get to hang out with high school kids or even college kids, you're thinking you're all that. And so I'm learning how to do these voices, doing all this stuff. And then my parents, we had a small IGA grocery store. Now, who will remember IGA grocery store? Some people will, some people won't. And so I remember when I've been 12 years old, it was 1980. And my dad said, hey guys, we're going to go to Chicago this summer, like on a family trip. And I'm thinking, great. I was a big sports fan growing up. So I'm thinking, we're going to go to a Cubs game. He goes, no. I go, White Sox? He goes, no. We're going to an IGA grocery store convention. I'm going, yeah.
What?
Yeah, when you're 12 going to an IGA grocery store convention, I mean, but that was his life. That was my parents' life. That's what they did. And so looking back, that was really an aha moment for me, because this is 1980. And even though this guy has been pretty much maligned now, but I think he's been vindicated a little bit. In 1980, this was before he got real famous. Bill Cosby was the evening entertainment at one of the nights of the convention. And I'm listening to him there, and I didn't even know stand-up comedy was a thing you could do. And he was really amazing. Now, he had been obviously successful with Fat Albert, some other stuff before that, but the Cosby Show hadn't even come on TV yet. So he just blew up famous in the mid-'80s when the Cosby Show happened. But I'm listening to him at the convention, and as a 12-year-old, I'm going, that's pretty cool. You can get paid to stand on a stage and make people laugh. I'm thinking, I want to do that. So that was literally the Saturday night of the convention. The Sunday morning, I told you I'm kind of a sports fan, and many people may know this guy as a college football coach, ESPN analyst. His name is Lou Holtz. And if you know anything about college football, he had just won the national championship for Arkansas. And if you ever get a chance to listen to some of Lou Holtz's old stuff, I mean, this is 1980, so my goodness, it's 45 years ago now. But I'm listening to Lou Holtz on Sunday morning, and that guy made me so motivated. I feel like I could just run through a wall after listening to him speak. And so I'm going, how do I do comedy? How do I be motivator? How does that even work in the real world? Because when you talk to your friends, when you go back to school, they want to be police officers or teachers or whatever. You know, that's what they want to be. And I'm sitting there, I never said a word to anybody. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I want to do stand-up comedy. I want to be a motivational speaker. So that's really where I was thinking, how do I get there? And obviously the internet wasn't around in the 80s. And I'll never forget, and it's just like every little thing in my life has kind of led me to where I am today. And in 1983 or whatever, I was a sophomore in high school, and I still have this notebook to this day, but now getting motivational quotes is pretty easy. You can just do a quick Google search. We can have it on our phone instantaneously. But 1983, this wasn't the case. And every day, our history professor of all people, and he would come in and he would put a quote of the day on the board. And every day I'd write that thing down, and I could literally go find that notebook and show it to you right now. I still have every quote that he wrote down because I'm thinking, this is so cool. It's so motivational. And
yeah.
I mean, and the quotes weren't that exciting, but it was so easy for me to just kind of jump into that. And so that was, going through high school and stuff. I played all kinds of sports. I did all the plays, musicals, you name it, anything to be in front of people. That's what I did. I didn't realize that's what I wanted to do as much as when I started doing it, kind of got excited about it. And so kind of the next big aha moment for me was went to the University of Nebraska to go to school. And I'm in a freshman speech class, and there's like 20 some, maybe 30 people in this freshman speech class, mid-'80s. So if you can picture this, the professor comes into class literally still smoking the pipe, because in the mid-'80s, you could do that. Obviously, in today's world, that would never happen. Now, obviously, he comes in, he's got the whatever, I don't know what kind of jacket it is, but it's got the elbow pads on the arms. Oh, yeah. People old enough to remember that can definitely see that, I'm sure. And he says, the first speech we're going to do, guys, is going to be a 5 to 7 minute informational speech. So at the end of the speech, or at the end of the class, I walked up to the professor. Dr. Harper was his name. I'll never forget him to this day. And I said to him, would it be okay if I tried to make this speech funny? And he said, well, you can, but if it doesn't go well, you're probably going to get downgraded. Typical college professor kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what the heck? What if I get a bad grade on one speech, my freshman year of college? So I go home, and I'd never written any material. I'd always done characters. Even in high school, the football and basketball coaches would ask me to do characters of different movies and stuff like that. And I could always mimic these different characters. So 1987 is when this would have been, 86, I guess. I get up for my first speech of the semester. And if you go back to the mid-'80s, all these television evangelists were just they were on every National Enquirer cover because they were asking for money on Sundays and sleeping with prostitutes during the week. And we could name a bunch of them that were doing this. It wasn't just one. So I got up in front of the class, and I was doing my speech on television evangelism, of all things, at the age of 18 years old. But Kevin, yeah. I think you could appreciate that after we started our
Yeah.
after how we started this morning. So that's awesome. But the point I'm trying to make is I got up there and I got my best foghorn leghorn voice, and I literally just did this introduction, and I gave a bunch of names like James Falwell, Baker, Swigert. I don't even know what I said. I said all the names that were popular at the time. And I said, if you want to be saved, let me hear you say A. And this guy in the back of the room yelled, he stood up and goes, amen, brother. And the whole room erupted. And so obviously laughter is contagious. And when you get one laugh, the second one, the third one, it just becomes a lot easier, I guess. And so that first 5 to 7 minute speech was amazing. I got a standing ovation from the actual, 25, 30 freshman people, at the University of Nebraska. I thought that was pretty cool. Well, what I didn't realize is that was going to put a little bit of pressure on me to the next speech needed to be better, and the next one and the next one. And because it was quite amazing, by the end of the semester, Dr. Harper was starting to invite other professors from the English department in to listen to my speeches. So the most, I guess that was a big deal for me, because here I am, 18, 19 years old, whatever it was, 18, I guess, and people were coming to watch me perform. And I thought that was really cool. And so obviously the next step was, how do I get onto a comedy stage? And so in Lincoln, Nebraska, where I was going to school, right across from University of Nebraska campus, there was a restaurant called Spaghetti Works. And I'll bet in other places you might have something like the Spaghetti Factory or what are all these other, there's versions of this all over the country. But the reason I went to work at Spaghetti Works, I had multiple reasons. The food was good. There was a lot of other kids my age working there. And up at the upper level of the Spaghetti Works, there was a Noodles Comedy Club, is what it was called. It was a really small comedy club in Lincoln, Nebraska. And so I remember interviewing at Spaghetti Works, and the young lady, she's young to me now, but at that time she was probably 30. So she had looked really old compared to the 18-year-old in front of her. And she said, okay, the one thing we have to request is that you have to work either Friday or Saturday night, because we're on a college campus here. We can't have you ask off for both nights. So I stupidly said, can I work both nights? And she said, nobody ever asked to work both nights. I said, but you told me if I work at Spaghetti Works, I can get into the comedy club for free. And there was a late show on Friday and Saturday night. So I could wait tables on Friday and Saturday night, then go up to the comedy club for free, sit in the back of the comedy club and listen to these comics. It was like the perfect storm. And so every night I'd work Friday and Saturday, which were by far the highest tipping nights because there was the busiest. And I know this isn't going to sound like a ton of money today, but in 1986, I could pull down anywhere from 90 to 100 bucks on a weekend or one night. And that was a big deal when you're 18 years old in 1986, 87. And so I literally started going up to the comedy club every weekend. And I did that for probably a year and just sat in the back and watched. Finally, the club owner said to me, he said, Pip, obviously I got to know him because I know him. I was there almost every weekend. He said, why are you here all the time? I said, I want to be a stand-up comic. Well, here's the thing that, everything kind of happens for the right reasons. This club was a small club. It only had 2 people that they were paying. They couldn't pay an MC or an opening act. They just didn't have that in their budget. And so the manager would go up his name was Brian. Brian would go up on Friday and Saturday night to open the show. And he'd say, hey, my name is Brian. I'm the manager of Noodles here. Don't forget to tip your wait staff. Your first comic is. Well, that's a terrible way to start a comedy show. And the comedians hated it because nobody had a drink in them yet. And on top of that, it was a cold mic that they were coming to. And so Brian said to me, he said, do you ever want to get up on stage? And he goes, I can't pay you, but how about you go up on stage and do the introduction? You can tell a few jokes if you want to. I said, you'd let me do that? He said, of course I'll let you do that. He goes, I can't pay you.
Sure, I don't have to pay you, and you're warming it. Yeah.
He goes, I hate the job. I'll never forget one time, Kevin, he went up on stage, and he was managing the club, so it means he was helping serve drinks or get drinks at the bar. He literally, somebody had spilled, it looked like a strawberry daiquiri on him, and he had to go up in front of the audience and literally introduce people with the strawberry daiquiri stain all over his shirt. I guess that's kind of funny, but I felt bad for Brian at the time. Anyway. So it wasn't real professional, but he said, yeah, you're more than welcome to go up anytime. So I started writing material because now I've got a real audience that I'm going to go in front of. And I did that. And I ended up, doing probably 5 to 7 minutes that first night. And they called in the business, they call it an applause break. And so when you could get an applause break as a stand-up comic, you're doing all right. And so I literally did that. And what I ended up doing was I started doing that every weekend, going and do it for free. And I literally got an old VHS camera, put it in the back of the comedy club. This is dating me here. put that VHS camera in the back of the club, and I started recording myself. Now, I did that more for just kind of, I guess, trying to, do a better job. But somebody said, well, you got to take those VHS tapes and send them off to comedy clubs, send them off to booking agents, and they'll book you for their shows. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's exactly what I did. And so this would have been now in the early 90s. I started doing stand-up comedy all around the United States. Basically from 1990 to 1997, I was doing stand-up comedy. I was having a blast. I was young. I was dumb. I wasn't making much money, but I was sure having a good time doing it. Well, then I met my future wife, girlfriend at the time. Her name was Jennifer. For me, it was love at first sight. Now, Jennifer, on the other hand, she's a bit of a slow learner. So it took me about 3 years to really, close the deal there. And so in 1999, we got married, and I went back to work at the family-owned grocery store. And so I go back to work at the family-owned grocery store. My dad is now retired. My two brothers are running the store, and they were so gracious to let me take the same amount of money out of the grocery store as the business as they were, which was $35,000, $36,000 a year maybe. And so that's the amount of money we were all taking out of the store. The problem is we were trying to feed too many mouths with this small business. We also were not, for us, it wasn't if Walmart was coming to town, it was when is Walmart coming to town. So these were all issues that we were trying to face. The only way I could figure out, Kevin, how to make more money at the grocery store was to kill off one of my brothers. And I thought maybe we could split the salary 2 ways instead of 3. But that was what we were thinking. It obviously didn't work out very well. I didn't do that. And so I'm working at the grocery store, and I start reading all these books. And I read the book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm assuming, Kevin, you're shaking your head, so you probably know the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it literally lit a fire underneath me. And I started getting every purple book because all of his books have purple covers of some sort. I got an entire purple library at home. Now, you have to remember, my wife and I are pretty much newlyweds at this point. We've been married a couple of years at this time. I want to make money. I'm working at the grocery store now 50, 60, 70 hours a week. I'd become my dad, and I hated it. And so I'm working at the grocery store. And if you've ever worked retail, I always ask people, what's the worst time of the year to work retail? They always say the holidays. I say any time is the worst time of year to work retail. I hated it. I didn't want to be there. And so I'm trying to figure out how to make more money, hence reading the books Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My wife, on the other hand, she wants to be a mama, and she wants to be a stay-at-home mama. So she's reading books on what to expect when you're expecting and things like that. So just total polar opposites here. Well, then I see this big ad to go see Zig Ziglar, and I'd listened to some of his stuff, and I knew he was really good. And so in 2002, we went to go see Zig Ziglar at this big stage event. As I said earlier, we paid $99 to go to this 3-day event. We go to this 3-day event, and it changed our lives. Now, when I sat in the 3-day event, I'm thinking, I really want to do what that guy in the front of the room is doing. That's what I want to do. Here he is. He's funny. He's educating people. But on top of that, he's also motivating us to change our lives. And I'm thinking, how do I put myself in those shoes? And the only thing I could think of was to become the best real estate investor I could possibly be. Then they would be asking me to come on and do that. So that's exactly what I did. And I went as fast and as hard as I possibly could with real estate. And we bought a boatload of properties in a short period of time. We then got asked to go out and mentor other students. Now, I'll never forget, I get a call from the guy who's in charge of the mentors, and it was the Rich Dad, Poor Dad group at the time. And he literally said to me, he said, Pip, your mentor said you guys would be awesome as mentors, meaning my brother and I. You bought all these properties. We'd like to see a property portfolio from you guys, but before we even see the portfolio, I'd like to know if you guys would come on as mentors. And I said, well, I don't want to really be a mentor. He goes, that's the first time I've ever been turned down. Why don't you want to be a mentor? And I said, well, my wife tells me I talk better in front of 50 people than I do one-on-one. That's not a compliment coming from your wife, by the way, folks. And so she also tells me I look better in the dark. That's not a compliment either, is it, Kevin? I don't think so. Either way, the point I'm trying to make is, he said, why don't you want to mentor? I said, I want to be the guy teaching people at the first basic class, as it's called, the introductory class. He said, well, Pip, mentor for 18 months, then you can do anything that you want. Okay. So I'm always the guy that says, if you tell me what to do, I will do it. It was kind of funny. Kevin was asking me before we even got on here, what do you know about the show? I know nothing. They told me they wanted me on here, so I'm here. I don't have to look at all the details to figure out I want to do something. I figure if God put something in front of me, there's a reason I should be going after it. So for 18 months, it really wasn't even 18 months. About 14 months in, I'm starting to send them video recordings of me speaking in front of groups of people. And at 18 months in, I get a call and say, hey, would you like to come out and start speaking and train to do that? I said, of course I would. This is back in 2007. And so now from 2007 until today, I literally have now had blessing is the best word that I can use, to teach in almost every state in the United States and 18 different countries across the world. So
Dang.
I can't even believe what I've got the opportunity to do. I've been on stages in front of all the way, well, I'll go to the small stuff first, as few as 12 people all the way up to 6,000 people. And so most of the time when I teach, it's a 3-day class, and depends on the weekend, but it's usually anywhere from, I'd say on a low side, 50 all the way up to about 150, maybe 200 students. I'm going to be going out to Fresno this weekend, and I think there's supposed to be 200 students in that class. So I can give you way more details if that's what you want, but that's kind of the background and where this happened. And Kevin's going, I don't even get a chance to say anything. This guy just keeps talking. So I usually talk for 3 days. So trying to get this in an hour.
Make sure you ask some questions in the middle.
There you go.
That's awesome, man. That whole thing is amazing. I'm thinking, I was the investor, right? You know, I had the cruise, 10 rehabs a month, I had all the things, and then I got burnt out, and I was supposed to be helping these other people, mentorship in a sense, like coaching these people, and then the guy who was supposed to go on stage to our little event was like, here you go, gave me the mic, and like I never gave it back. And then you start talking in front of some of these rooms, and you understand the side. You'll speak at a conference or something, and you start controlling the audience. You know, you move this way, they follow you with their eyes. You know, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's almost addictive. You start really connecting with the audience, and you want that back. I can see where rock guys get hooked on this.
It's the best drug in the world. And my wife will laugh if I'm not on stage at least once a month. It's almost like I've got this itch that I need to scratch, because that is an addiction to me. It's to be able to stand up in front of people and I hope it's not ego driven ever, but it really just comes. It just feels so like that's what God put me on this planet to do, is exactly that.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that. It's not a look at me. It really is, here's a gift. I would be remiss if I don't use it. If not, there's going to be some wolf come in and just take the sheep out. It's like, no, you got to protect your flock.
Well, for the longest time, I taught in for the Rich Dad Poor Dad organization, and I owe them a lot. I got mentored by Kiyosaki, a lot of amazing things, but it was always in secular rooms. And I mean, it just kind of, obviously I wear who I am on my sleeve, and I can't change this. I've now had the opportunity, since basically COVID happened until now, to create my own company. And then actually that company got purchased by a bigger company that all we do is we go in front of basically Christian-based audiences and teach this from a real estate investing as far as a biblical perspective. And I was teaching it this way long before it was ever that we're actually in front of Christian audiences. So I was in secular rooms. I'll never forget, Kevin, I was up in Canada teaching one time, and it was a Sunday evening. I'd just done a 3-day presentation. This lady shakes my hand and she says, Pip, I really enjoyed your presentation. I just didn't like all the God references. I didn't know what to say. So I said, well, have a great evening. God bless you. As she walked out of the room. And so that's just who I am. I'm not going to change that for anybody. And so I've always been teaching in these types of ways. And it really comes down to how we invest. And some of the very basic principles are share the wealth. We want other people to make money on our deals, because if we're the only ones making money, and if I'm doing a deal with you, Kevin, and I win and you lose, how long is that business model going to last? Yeah. If I can do a deal where you win and I win and maybe some other people win across the process, then we can literally do as many real estate deals as we want, because people are constantly, I think everybody knows that real estate is a pretty good investment. I think they realize this, but they don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to be a tenant, or probably they don't want to be a landlord. They'll probably be a tenant. They don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to fix toilets and manage tenants. And so if we can show an investor a way to get a great return on their money They never have to talk to a tenant. They never have to fix a toilet. There's a huge win for them as an investor. And the win for me is I can do deals with other people's money and other people's credit and give them a great return without the headache of what generally goes with real estate. And I've been teaching this literally the same way since 2005 when I started mentoring students, because that's kind of the way we got into this. We didn't have money and we had good credit, but how many mortgages can you get when you don't have a lot of income? So we had to be very creative. And I think, the people that taught me how to do things through the, whether it be lease options, rent to own type scenarios, and the creative financing that goes with it. What we then started to do in 2009, 8 and 9, we started marrying that up with pre-foreclosures on helping people out of a bad situation. I mean, from 2002 to 2007, the market was going up like a rocket ship. You could fog a mirror, you could get a mortgage. That's how easy it was. Yeah. So God put me in that place at that right time. And most importantly, in 2008, when the market changed, a lot of these people still needed help. They didn't mysteriously disappear off the earth. What they did, though, is they lost their jobs, so their credit got shot because they couldn't make their mortgage payment. They still needed a place to live, so they needed help getting into houses, whether it was traditional rental properties or putting them into some type of rent-to-own lease option to help them get their credit built back up. So all of that perfect storm kind of came together for us, and that's what we've been focusing on and been doing basically ever since 2000, started in 2002, really started taking off in 2005. I think one of the things that I want to share for me, I'll never forget when we got asked to come on as mentors, the guy that was in charge of mentors, he literally, I said, I don't know if I have time to do this. I was still working part-time at the grocery store. I was doing real estate part-time. We had a 1-month-old, or at that time we had a 2.5-year-old daughter home. My wife was pregnant with our second baby. And so I didn't know if I had time to do all this stuff. And he said, Pip, he said, mentor for other people and your business will take off exponentially. And I have to admit, I didn't see that. I didn't get it. But he was 1,000% correct, because what you do is when you start solving other people's problems in real estate, your ability to do real estate deals goes up exponentially. You have just like this coat of armor on you now that people can throw any question at you, and you can literally just bounce that question off and keep moving forward and get to the goal that you need to, which is helping people and making money at the same time.
So are you still Nebraska based? Is that where you started?
I was born and raised in Nebraska City, went to school in Lincoln. And then in 2008, my wife and I, we closed down our grocery store. I think I made the comment was that, interestingly enough, we were worried it wasn't for us. It wasn't if Walmart was coming to town. It was when are they coming to town? And from 2002, we were getting educated and doing real estate deals. And I'm very thankful and blessed that we were doing that, because in 2007, Walmart opened a grocery store or a supercenter right across the street from our grocery store in Nebraska City. You go up Highway 75, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Those two buildings are still there today. And our business overnight dropped 50%. We spent at least, I don't know how many dollars we spent. I can give you that, but we don't have to get into a lot of money trying to keep the business open. And basically 17 months from January of 2007 to May of 2008, just trying to keep the doors open. And in the end of May 2008, we closed the store down and been open 57 years in Nebraska City. It was a crappy time, but I'm very, very grateful and thankful that I was doing real estate as well, because my wife and I ended up moving to the Kansas City area where we live now. And at that point, I was already doing some teaching and training, so I wanted to get closer to a bigger airport. We live about 10 minutes north of the Kansas City airport, and it's very convenient because mostly I can get to anywhere I want to in the country in about 2.5 hours. So that's nice rather than being on one of the coasts. So I do a lot of traveling. About once or twice a month, I will go out and teach classes and do things like that.
That is awesome, Pip. It actually just goes to show that sometimes negative things, right? Walmart coming in, closing out, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's something that you needed to push out to do the things that you actually wanted to do.
I didn't even know these were actually the things I wanted to do, but all of those things happened, for the right reasons. And during COVID, we kept hearing the word pivot. Now, I played basketball growing up, so we talked a lot about pivoting in basketball, but that wasn't a real common word until COVID, and then everybody's using it. But, whenever you have a major change in life that you can't control, there's so many things in life that we can control. Those are the things we should be concerned with. The stuff we can't control, then why even, waste time, effort, or energy on it? And so understanding that, sometimes we do need to pivot in life. We need to change the direction we're going, but we just need to make sure that we're constantly preparing ourselves, whether it's through education, whether it's through the relationships that we build, or the things that we do every day where we focus our time on. We need to be able to pivot on a regular basis, because who knows when the next thing that's going to happen, that what I'm talking to you about today may change for some reason. And I've got to learn to be able to pivot. And I think if we learn how to do that as people, we can accommodate and be successful in any situation.
So you mentioned in real estate that you were playing on the rent-to-own lease option world. Can you just define that so people understand what it is?
Yeah,
and it also sounded like you're raising private money and connecting the dots. So sandwich lease options, or
there's a
you
lot
want to just
of different
explain
ways
the
to do
technical
lease options. I've heard some people say there's 7 different ways to do lease options. And we've done probably all different 7 ways. But the one that we focus on the most, Kevin, is really going to be where we have somebody who wants to buy a house. So where do I get these people? I go to realtors and mortgage brokers, and I ask them a very basic question. I say to my realtors and my mortgage brokers, do you ever have anybody that wants to buy a house that can't quite qualify? I don't think I've ever met a realtor or a mortgage broker that didn't, if they're busy doing their business, that doesn't have somebody in their Rolodex that wants to buy a house that can't quite qualify. And so here's the nice part about it, is if they have somebody that can't quite qualify, I will literally say, I don't want the business that you're making money on. So if you've got a client that can buy the property, that can get the mortgage, you don't need me. Yeah. What I'm doing is I'm trying to solve a problem. So Mr. Mortgage Broker, Mr. Realtor, if you have anybody that wants to buy a house that can't quite qualify, call me. And so generally the people that have talked to a realtor, that have talked to a mortgage broker, they already have a desire to buy. They want to buy. Many times people will call a realtor and say, hey, I'm interested in buying a house. So what's one of the first things a realtor does is, after asking them a few questions, do you have a pre-qualification letter? Most people don't even know they need a pre-qualification letter. That's no problem. I'm going to send you my mortgage broker over here, and we'll see if we can get you qualified. And so they send him the mortgage broker. The mortgage broker looks at a lot of different facets of that person, but they'll look at their income, their debts, their credit score, their income that they have coming in, what they may have coming in the future, all those different things, work history, to see, can they qualify to buy a house? And if they get turned down, just remember, there's 3 people that are not very happy right now, maybe 4 if you count the husband and wife that want to buy a house they can't quite qualify, but the mortgage broker doesn't get paid and the realtor doesn't get paid. This is where we come in. We come in and we say, please send us those people, or more importantly, just call us and we'll have a conversation with the mortgage broker and the client, or the realtor and the client, and tell them how our program works, where we actually come in and what we do is we buy it. So let's say the John and Mary are the homeowners and they want to buy a house and they can't quite qualify. They're close, but maybe not quite there. And so they're buying, I think the average house in the United States now is right around $400,000. So we'll use that number. And so they find a house that they want to get, which is really cool for us because we don't have to spend time looking for houses. A lot of people don't get into real estate because they're worried about how time consuming it's going to be. So if I can have, we call them tenant buyers, these clients, John and Mary go out with the realtor to find a house. Well, guess what? I don't have to spend a lot of time looking for houses. So John and Mary and the realtor are out looking for houses while I'm doing, a podcast with Kevin right now. And that's technically happening in Kansas City as we speak. I have people going out with realtors trying to find houses that they want to buy. So they find a house at 123 B Street that they want to buy. They get ready to buy this house for whatever reason they can't quite qualify. That's where we are going to come in, and we do it one of 2 ways. Either we can buy the property with our own money and our own credit, but what we found to be the most beneficial is to bring a joint venture partner into the deal. They do the mortgage and the down payment. They don't have to worry about talking to tenants, fixing toilets, and we can give them generally a nice double-digit return. And when I say that, 15% or more on an ROI, which if you're investing money and credit into a deal and you get a 15% return. In fact, if they leverage, they might even get more than 15%. We can talk always about that with them. But they're doing the mortgage, they're doing the down payment, which means we're using none of our own money, none of our own credit. We're just basically facilitating the deals. John and Mary get into the house they want to get into right now. Well, guess here's the cool part about this. The mortgage broker that they went to, our joint venture investors are going to use that mortgage broker to get a mortgage on the house. So they get a mortgage. The realtor, when that house sells, guess what? They're going to get paid on their commission right now. So everybody wins right there. The mortgage broker actually wins twice Because what we do is, since the mortgage broker is working with John and Mary, right now they're renting it from us with the option to buy, hence the term lease option or rent to own, a lot of different terminology used there. And so John and Mary, over the course of the next 1, 2, 3, or 4 years, until they get qualified, they're paying us rent. They're taking care of maintenance and repairs on the property, so we don't have to worry about that. So we have a much better qualified person in the property. We have what we call a homeowner in training in the property instead of a tenant. Tenants may tear up your properties. Homeowners tend to take care of your properties. And what we've seen, Kevin, over the years is they've actually increased the value of the properties, which is kind of cool before they even own it. And so interestingly enough, the mortgage broker is working with John and Mary over the next 1, 2, 3 years to get them qualified to buy it from us. So the mortgage broker ends up getting 2 mortgages out of one house in the course of just a couple of years. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell, and that's very, very quick through that process.
Yeah, no, that's great. So with your homeowner in training, do they have to pay a certain option fee?
Yep. And so obviously, you know a lot about real estate. They most people that are buying a house, if you talk about option fee, they don't even know what that is. It is an option fee, and that's the way it is in our documents. They would look at it as more of a down payment, because when you go to buy a house, somebody's going to require you to do a down payment to get a mortgage on the house generally. And so we take that money down up front. It's called an option consideration. We take that money up front, and if they do everything that they're supposed to do, we're going to credit every dollar back to them. And so what they're able to do is they're able to have skin in the game right away. And it's generally more than first and last month's rent. A lot of times when you go get a rental property, and every area is a little bit different that I've noticed, but generally people understand if I'm going to rent you a house, you have to put for a deposit, you got to put first and last month's rent. So that's your deposit. Generally the option consideration or the option fee that you talk about is, the minimum we try to get is 3% of the actual purchase price. So if it was a $400,000, the minimum we want is $12,000. The way I look at that, that's 12,000 reasons why they're going to follow through with this deal. That's how we it's not a pressure situation. It's just, we want them to commit, because if it's really easy to get into something, it means it's probably too easy to get out of it. Yeah. We want them to have skin in the game. I've done lease options where they put down considerably more than 3%, because maybe they have bad credit, but they have income, or they have money and income. They just have really bad credit that they've got to get fixed. And so it just depends on the deal, but the minimum we want is generally 3 to 4% of the purchase price.
Good. Pip, great strategy. I've done that with some of my subject to deals. You buy this and then you're able to roll it out to one of the other ones. And talk about win-win-win across the board. You said you were playing with pre-foreclosures for a while?
Well, I've done a lot of pre-foreclosures. There haven't been quite as many in the market. Yeah. If we want to start doing predictions with all the adjustable rate mortgages that happened over COVID and those couple of years afterwards, and now the interest rates have jumped back up, I think we're going to see an increase in the foreclosure market. I don't think it's going to be quite as crazy as it was in 2008, but nonetheless, what we were able to do was literally, and you said something about sandwich lease option, I believe, earlier on as you were talking. And so what happens is, what we would do if somebody's behind on payments, and you can do it with a subject to process, or you can do it with a sandwich lease option thing, where we lease option it from the current homeowner to help them, and we let them keep the mortgage in their name so that it helps build their credit back up. That's one of the cool parts about sandwich lease option over maybe a subject to deal, is the mortgage stays in their name so that they can get their credit score built back up. And what we'll do is, we'll just quick math, we'll lease option it from them for $1,500 a month with the option to buy it for $350,000 when we qualify in 2 or 3 or 4 years. What we then do is we take another tenant buyer on the other side, we charge them $2,000 a month, and then we're going to sell it to them for $400,000 when they qualify from us. So we're in the middle taking that the extra money on that, and everybody, once again, is in a situation where everybody can win. So as long as we always want to make sure we're upfront on all the numbers. There's nothing ever hidden. I mean, when people say, you don't want to show them how much money you're making, I show everybody how much money I'm making, because if I'm not making money, I'm not going to be able to help them in the deal. It's that simple. This isn't a charity. We've got to make money. That's how we feed our families.
I had this talk. We just brought in some new, I don't like the word students, assets, I brought in some more people, and it's one of those, they were concerned that we were predatory, like we're trying to, and it's like, no, man, we play very open-handed. It's like, hey, if you're thinking this is what it's like, it's not. These people are begging for help. It's our job to help them out of bad situations.
Exactly.
And it's just one of those, like, you could spin it all you want. It's, I think, really your intent with that deal is, are you trying to smush these people, or are you trying to help them out?
Well,
take the weight off their shoulders.
I don't know if smush is a great word. I like that word. I'm not sure it's a real one, but I like that, smush. So if you're, my opinion of, if you're smushing people down and you're taking advantage of them, you're not going to be in business very long, because eventually somebody's going to say, we don't want to be smushed just like those last people got smushed.
Now you're using the word. It's going to stick.
It's going to stick. It's going to be in the new the Google meetings or whatever that is. It's going to be a Google word, whatever. So either way, we want to make sure that we're creating an environment where we're helping everybody. So because the main way that we do business is people say, oh, you got to work with them, or you got to work with them. They really help me out. Because if you don't have that kind of word of mouth, you're eventually going to not be in business.
I pride myself. I'm mostly a referral-based business. A lot of people know about you. It's like, hey, you want this guy, not those other people. It works. How do you do it? Build trust.
100%.
So people want to work with people they know, like, and trust. And did you know this? Like, if you could make them laugh, I think it's your percentage of sales actually goes up like 60 or 80%. Like, if you can make them laugh through the process.
I've heard that's a win-win when it comes to the sales world, is if you can make them laugh. If people aren't having fun, that's a tough world. If people are having fun, then everything becomes a little bit easier. There's no doubt about that.
Because, think about it. In our world, we're usually talking to people in their worst days. Somebody died, somebody's sick, debt, like something bad happened. That's why they're talking to investors, not traditional real estate people. And that's where it's one of those, like, give them hope, give them a chance to a better life. So I totally respect and like your exit strategy, helping people have another shot at it.
Yeah, and the cool part about it is, it's such a win-win, because we help people and we can make money doing it. And, those seem to not always go hand in hand. You got to help people. It's not profitable. But if you do it the right way, we've been doing it, almost 23 years now. So it's a really cool way to help and also get paid at the exact same time.
So has it always been easy? Have you ever had, like, struggles going through this process, or is it all like, rainbows and beachfront vacation homes?
Oh, it's always rainbows and unicorns and bubbles and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we've had multiple properties over the years that were challenges. And you look at, and I go back to the whole way I got into real estate was really a challenge of, we were worried about Walmart coming to town, and then they did. And so I think the challenges are always disguised as opportunities. And I think that's the way we need to look at it. So I always look at it, how can I learn from this challenge? And it'll help me for the next time this happens, or a different challenge that may come around. And so I always look at it and say, yeah, there's going to be times where we don't make as much money, or maybe even lose money on a real estate deal. We've had properties where we rehabbed it and it didn't resell at the level that we needed it to resell at. And that type of stuff happens. You always wish it didn't, but you want to make sure that you're doing enough deals so that if you have one or two bad deals, you've got 8 or 9 that are pretty good. And so I don't think it's like the stock market, and you're going to have bad trades. Most of the time you can mitigate losses in real estate. There are properties that we bought in Chicago in 2007, and by the end of 2008, they were worth 50% from the day we bought them. So we had to hold on to them as rentals for a long time. And did we make as much money on those as we could have? Not even close. But we ended up selling them for less than we bought them for almost 11 years earlier. And so even though they never went up in value, we were still able to make what? And this is why I like real estate more than any other asset class. We were still able to make cash flow. And the rents actually went up over that time frame. The value of the house didn't go up very much. Actually, it did never go up. It went way down, and then it never came back to its original purchase price. But that just happened to be a neighborhood thing that we were in. We really couldn't foresee that. And what happened was we were able to keep it as a rental and still make cash flow every month. And the nice part about real estate, this as an investor, your tenant is paying down your mortgage, and you've got tax benefits in multiple different ways.
Yeah. Awesome. So through this process, you've had your coaches, right? You've had your mentorships. You've had taken massive action. We kind of understand like the real life real estate side. Sometimes there are not just in a property specific. Sometimes when you're going full bore in a direction, sometimes your wife or your family aren't on board, or they're the ones pulling you back, or there's like this argument. Some people claim that when you start becoming more successful, you can't have friends. This was a conversation was successful men can't have friends because you alienate yourself from the rest of it. I'm completely against that. We have bunches of friends, right? But I think your different personalities go through it. But have you noticed any push or pull with your life balance, or as you were growing this, did you notice any ripples in any of these other relationships?
Well, I think you always, the most important relationship you're going to have on earth is going to be with your spouse. And Lou Holtz says this: the most important thing you can do is pick a good spouse. And Ben, I knocked it out of the park when I picked Jennifer, or she picked me. And so that was a huge win for me. And so great spouse, I think, means so much. The other relationships that you have, and it can be with family and or friends, I think some of those changed a little bit as success happens. And I don't know if, people, you're just in different places in life. And my goal is always to bring everybody up with me, but sometimes people don't want to change their life. And I get it. It's not easy to change, especially when you're kind of set in your ways. And so if people don't want to come along for the ride, sometimes they are kind of left on the side. Not in a negative way. It's just they've chosen to do something different. Good for them. I've chosen to do something else. Good for me, I guess. And so I think as long as you look at it that way, do I have the same friend group that I had when I was 20 years old? Of course not. But I would challenge to say how many people really do. Generally, the people that you're friends with are the people that you're hanging out with, that you're working with a lot of times. And maybe you have one or two close friends that you've kept for years and years and years. So I think that's, in my way of looking at it, I don't think I've had to, have relationships that were stressed that way. The one thing I would say that I have seen over the years after owning my own companies and doing things like that is sometimes, hiring friends is a bit of a challenge to be working with you, because I learned this the hard way, is that nobody's ever going to work as hard on your business as you do. And even though you want them to, and even though you might even expect them to, they're never going to. And that can even be, your relatives, your family members. They're not going to be as excited about working in your business as you are. And we just have to, I guess that's something I learned. I don't think it's a bad thing, but we need to learn that nobody's going to be as excited to come to work for you as you are to do your business. It's just that simple. So as long as you understand that and realize that people will, all you can ask for them is to do their very best. Will they give as much as you're going to give? No way. And that's okay, but you can't expect it. I learned that, through years and years of experience.
So Pip, I have to admit, we're actually starting here to wrap it up, but if you could go back and give some advice to young Pip, right? As I don't know if it's comedian Pip, I don't know if it's IGA Pip, or what I have to have a sense that there was like this Walmart doom and gloom coming over, right? Now we hear about, the iBuyers are coming, or these are coming, or regulations coming, or this is coming. Like, do you have any advice for that feeling doom and gloom? Call that your corporate America experience. Call that, it seems like it puts you in a box, and you're not really much of a box guy, right? But do you have advice for somebody, whether it's they're stuck in a family business, whether they're stuck in corporate America, the doom and gloom is coming, the people are coming? Like, what advice do you have for somebody like that?
Well, I was that guy. I mean, I was in a family business. I see this when I go out and teach around the world. People are in the corporate world. And I think what you need to constantly do, is you need to, I don't think reinvent yourself, but get yourself some other skills that, you can use above and beyond what your job is, above and beyond what your current career is. And it could be as basic as learning financial literacy, like how to read an accounting statement. I tell my daughters, they're both kind of in the medical field, that you need to get some basic accounting stuff. And if you get some basic accounting stuff, that's going to help you in so many ways that you don't even realize. And now the cool part about it is our oldest daughter just recently said, Dad, I want to get into real estate. She's 22. And I never thought it would happen because we never pushed it on them. But when you kind of are around something, I think that's what it's all about. But I think making sure you have and I don't want to call it something to fall back on. And because if you say you're going to fall back on it, that means you may have an excuse not to work as hard as you are at what you're doing right now. I mean, if we go back to the IGA grocery store days, I guess for me, I was a hard worker no matter what I was doing, even if I didn't like it. I was going to make sure that I worked as hard as I possibly could because I realized this may be, and I guess this is probably the best advice, whatever you're doing right now is preparing you for the next thing in life, whatever that is. And so it could be so many different levels. It could be spiritually, it could be relationship-wise, it could be in your professional life. Whatever you're doing right now, do it to the best of your ability because that's probably preparing you for something you're going to do next, whatever that next phase is. Nobody knows what that is. And that's kind of the grand surprise that I think we all should look forward to in life. Because if we knew the day that we were going to die, if we knew everything that we were going to do tomorrow, I don't think life would be very fun. It definitely wouldn't be exciting. And so it's nice to have, and I don't think they even need to be surprises. They can just be things to look forward to. And I think as long as we're looking forward to that, and I think Matthew McConaughey might have said that on an Oscar acceptance speech, as long as you have something to chase, a dream to go after, I think you're going to be all right.
That's great. Look, you end on a motivational quote, just like you set up in the beginning. We're talking about Seinfeld earlier. Like you just did it. You just wrapped it up. So, Pip, this has been fun. So in conclusion, right, all that said, you actually ended with a great conclusion already. But do you have any final pieces of advice for maybe it's somebody new getting into the space, maybe it's somebody struggling in the space, maybe they're losing their identity? Do you have one of those motivational quotes or a way or, I don't know the right words, a poem, but something that you want to leave people with that they're like, you know what, this is the day Pip got me to step over and be the guy that I need to be?
Well, I didn't even know we were going in this direction. I end every talk that I do. I've never done it on a podcast, but I've done every talk that I do in person. I end with a poem, and I'll say the poem in just a moment. I can't believe I'm even getting asked to do this. So Kevin, you just made my whole day by asking me that when you said poem, because I don't usually get that asked on a podcast. I've done some other podcasts, never got that question, but I'll end with the poem. And I think it's very, very poignant to what we talk about here. But as a new investor, you're going to have a lot of people that are in the business. And when I say that, I'm not knocking realtors or mortgage brokers or real estate lawyers or anybody like that are going to tell you the way you want to do things in a creative way is wrong. And just realize that if you go up to a realtor and you ask them about wholesaling properties or lease optioning properties, this is the best advice I was probably ever given, was that when somebody that's a realtor or mortgage broker or been in the business a long time says, oh, no, you can't do that, you should be very happy. You should be smiling so big you can get a banana sideways. That's how big you should be smiling. And why is that? Because if you talk to a realtor and you ask them about wholesale and lease option and they poo-poo and then say, oh, that's not a good thing to do, remember, they're telling every other person that asked them that same question. So what they're doing and not even knowing they're doing is they are eliminating any competition you have to do that business, because the few, the proud of us that do things in a different way, that do things in a very creative way, allows all of us that do this to not have a ton of competition, because the average Joe, the average person out there is not going to do it that way. So some will, some won't. So move on. I heard that a long time ago. So that would be my best advice. And I'm going to end with this poem. I can't even believe I get the opportunity to do this. This poem was actually read at my dad's funeral. My dad was a dive bomber pilot in World War II. And so I don't think I've ever put this on video. So Kevin, I'm going to need this recording big time. And so my dad was a dive bomber pilot in World War II. And he had gone to 2 years of university, about a year and a half when Pearl Harbor got bombed. And so in January of the next year, right after Pearl Harbor got bombed, he quit college and he enlisted in the United States Navy. And I don't know that I would ever have the guts to do that, because he would have never been drafted. I mean, never been drafted. Because once you had a couple of years of university, they were drafting all the 18-year-olds. They didn't need the people that are already in university. But he quit what he was doing, became a World War II vet. He was a Navy officer, and he was a dive bomber pilot, actually. And so looking back, he was one of my heroes. He taught me everything that he could, but obviously I wanted to do more than what he did in life. But if I could be 1/10 of the man that my dad was, I'm going to be all right. So plain and simple, if I could do that, that would be amazing. And so I actually, when I say this poem, I also now, my dad passed away in 2003. I also, probably 2005, pardon me. My dad passed away in 2005. I also say this in honor of my mom because she passed away in 2013. And she was told at the age of 25, she should never have kids. I'm so glad that my mom does not listen to doctors, or else I would never be here. And so I'm the youngest of 6. My mom, amazing parent. So if I can be 1/10 of the man that my dad was, 1/10 of the parent that my mom was, I'm going to be all right. So the poem I'm going to share with you is called The Builder. I've changed it up just a little bit. You can go online and find it, but it goes like this. I saw a group of men tearing a building down, a group of men in my hometown. With a heave and a hoe, they swung the beam, and the sidewall fell. I asked the foreman, are these men skilled, the type you'd hire if you want to build? He laughed and said, why, no, indeed, common labor is all I need. For I can tear down in a day or two what it took a builder 10 years to do. I thought to myself as I walked away, which of these roles am I going to play? Am I going to be the type that walks constantly around tearing other people down? Or am I going to be the type to build with care so that my friends, family, and neighbors are glad that I was there?
Pip, that is awesome.
Thank you.
I got like goosebumps here.
That's good. It's a great poem.
Where did you find this?
I actually heard Lou Holtz recite it all the way back in 1980, and I spent decades, I think, trying to find it. I ended up finding it somewhere, but I literally got a VHS tape of Lou Holtz doing this presentation, and I ended up memorizing it for never knowing if I'd ever use it. Now I use it every time I talk in front of, whether it's 12 people or 5,000 people, I use it to end every presentation. I've never used it online. This is literally the first time I think I've ever done it in a recorded session. So I thank you for that. That's why we go. See, that's why I didn't even question when Mary said, you need to talk to Kevin. He does a podcast. So that's why I'm here.
Don't even question it. I'll tell you, Mary's awesome. So I use The Man in the Arena as one of my closers, like just classic Teddy Roosevelt. But man, it's
a good poem.
Great story, great poem, great interview. Thank you so much, Pip, for coming on and sharing your life, your experiences with us. And man, I really do believe you're going to be a blessing to so many people. So I appreciate it. Thank you for building the home ownership. Thank you for securing the real estate world for a lot of people. So, Pip, great to have you on. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
How wonderful was this conversation? I want you guys to leave with this question that he raised in his final talk, right? Are you going to be one of those common laborers? Are you going to be one of those destroyers who could tear down something that in a couple of days, something that it took, 10 years to build? Who are you going to be? Reminds me back to my favorite stuff, right? The Man in the Arena. Are you going to be that person in the arena fighting and working and trying to be this best that you can? Or are you going to be that critic who doesn't count, right? The person on the sidelines, the destroyer, using their words to break it up? Or are you going to be the person out there building and boxing and working and striving for excellence? Guys, how awesome. Truly inspirational, some of the stuff going on. So guys, hopefully you found that nugget, those words that you need to get out there and start taking and beat that fear by taking action. So whether it's in real estate, whether it's in entrepreneurship, whether it's you being a leader or making a change in your life, guys, wake up. If you're sleeping at the wheel of life, wake up, get involved, right? Just enjoy it. Enjoy the process, the good days, the bad days, just get out there and live it. So guys, have a great time. We love you here from the Kevin Duragi Show. See you soon.